The Justice Department has not publicly released documents in the dismissed corruption case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The DOJ asked for a one-week extension to unseal those documents on Saturday, a day after the missed deadline. Manhattan federal judge Dale Ho granted a request last week for the documents to be released without any objection from Adams' lawyer or the DOJ. Multiple news outlets requested the documents as a matter of public interest, and certainly they are of interest. Those papers could also affect Adams' chances as a candidate in New York City's upcoming mayoral election. Joining us now, Washington correspondent for Spectrum News, Kevin Frey. Kevin, talk a little bit about this DOJ extension, and less about the fact that they're asking for an extension, but more about what we're hoping to see here and what it could portend for Adams as a political candidate on the ballot in just a few weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, let's start with what we're expecting to see here, which is all of this evidence backing up their claims of corruption by this mayor over the course of the last several years. And because of the way the Trump administration handled this, where they essentially, one, requested that the charges be dropped temporarily, could be brought back, and then the judge came in and said, well, that doesn't really work because you'd basically be holding something over the Adams administration until he's out of office. So then they basically dropped the charges outright. So if we want to get any sense of what was actually going on behind the scenes, because Adams is denying any wrongdoing and the Trump administration's, one could argue, trying to cover it up, essentially, this would be our chance at getting these answers. Now, in terms of the context of the mayor's race itself, he was already not going to run as a Democrat. He's running as an independent. His political career at this point is on life support. Quite frankly, the candidates are running around him. Yes, he's an easy punching bag for them, but he's not really the focus of anyone who's covering or monitoring this race. The only thing he could perhaps play a role in is in the general down the road. Could he be a spoiler for someone else? The focus, I think, for many is the potential rise of former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. Can you talk about the state of his candidacy? Yeah, and look, I mean, he is up by double digits in the latest poll. Now, we have to add the caveat that there is ranked choice voting in the New York Democratic primary, and so that could add all sorts of surprises into the mix. But the fact that it's him double digits ahead. The next in line is this Democratic Socialist Assembly member who is pulling out rallies, is kind of trying to do this sort of organic grassroots messaging sort of campaign. But whether or not he can overcome the Goliath in the room, which is Cuomo, is an outstanding question. And this comes, of course, despite the fact that Cuomo has all sorts of baggage. Need I go through the sexual harassment issues when he was governor? On top of that, questions about how he handled nursing homes during the early years of the pandemic. The list goes on from there, let alone the fact that he's accused of, which he has denied, using AI to draft his housing platform, which is, of course, essential if you're running for the mayor of New York City. So couple all these things together, he's still really the gorilla in the room. But there are lots of potential ways that his candidacy could unravel. Yeah, I think it will also tell us a lot about Democrats in New York. I'm not so sure that this race and that person in the race is replicable on a national scale, but it might tell us something about New Yorkers' ability to forgive or perhaps forget. And especially the Me Too movement, which he was kind of emblematic of. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So we'll table that and keep covering it. But then there's also the shadow primary that's forming for Republicans in the New York governor's race. Kathy Hochul, of course, up for re-election on the Democratic side. But there's some intrigue here, as it had been widely believed that Congressman Mike Lawler was going to try to run, and now you've got Elise Stefanik also clearly dipping her toe in the water with some support likely from the White House, too. Well, and let's start by just parceling where Kathy Hochul is, because 4 years ago, well, 3 years ago now, we still have a year to go, golly, Kathy Hochul won by only single digits against Republican Congressman then, Lee Zeldin, who now heads the EPA. And so she was seen as uniquely vulnerable. The question is now, 4 years later, her polling has sort of stabilized. If anything, a recent poll showed her kind of going up a little bit. And then add on top of that, it'll be arguably a referendum on Trump. So that should help the Democrats in New York come next year. However, you do have, as you mentioned, this shadow primary with some very key players on Capitol Hill. Elise Stefanik was already, one could say, robbed of her UN ambassador spot. So now the White House arguably owes her something. She's back in the House. All reporting is she's relatively miserable and frustrated. And so this is one opportunity that's hanging out there. The polling suggests that she could dominate this field if she were to actually dip her toe into this race. And so that is certainly something that she's weighing. And then on the same time, Mike Lawler, a moderate congressman, seen as perhaps a major candidate for a while. But he, at least in his public persona, has been really focusing more so on his congressional race, possibly because some of the polling suggests that he's not going to do as well against him.
Yeah, and he is regularly in one of those frontline districts that he really does have to play defense for his seat. And frankly, national Republicans in Congress badly need him.
Want him to stay around. So. Exactly.
Absolutely. Kevin Frey, our man, all of New York. I always thank you and love you when you come on.
Good to be here.
Earlier in the show, though, we asked you, the viewers, why are you awake? It was probably to hear us talk New York politics.
Why
and yet, Wendy is headed to the Memphis airport as her son heads back to New York City. All right, he's got a good primer on the political landscape now. You're welcome. Matthew writes, excited to leave Pittsburgh on Friday to go to the condo in South Carolina and completely overwhelmed with everything that has to be done before we leave. There is that, initial rush of anxiety when you're leaving on vacation.
Oh, yeah, I hate any form of planning.
Yeah.
If I can avoid it, I'd rather have someone plan for me.
Totally. I think that there are people who do that.
There are.
Yeah. And another viewer is up early because of this 14-week-old house destroyer, also shoes, pants, and furniture destroyer. But with a face like that, you really can't be mad at it. So sweet. Coming up next on Way Too Early, what